Hey guys, today we're going to look at nested loops. What a nested loop is a loop inside of a loop. And so the best example that I've come across of a nested loop and how it works is a clock. And so what I'd like for you to do is we're going to take a look at this, but if you want to do this on your own, you can copy and paste this code and throw it in your favorite IDE and step through it. That's what we're going to do right here. So I've got that same code inside Eclipse, and we're going to step through it together. And all this is going to do is print out a clock with the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. Now I'll be honest, for us in class, this is a three tiered nested loop. We're not going to have many of these. There may be one case where we have 3 tiers. Most of ours are going to be just a single loop inside of a loop. So this is a little more complicated than what we're probably going to do for most things in class, but it's a really good example. So I'm going to go ahead and press play here. You'll notice that it stops after the first hour has printed. That's something that I've built into this. That's what this does right there. And the only reason for that is so we can step through it and kind of look at it together. If I were to not have this there and run it, it would run the entire thing. And you can see it actually takes a second to run the entire thing. But that's just hard to process. So this lets me stop it after each hour so that we can kind of analyze what's going on. And so let's take a look at it. So this outer loop, you'll notice it uses a variable called hours. What this one's going to do is it's going to iterate for 12 times. So notice it starts at 0 and it goes up until 12, so 11. So it's going to be 12 times. This one is going to iterate 60 times, and then this line is going to iterate 60 times as well. So you'll notice that this for loop header and this for loop header are identical except for the names of the variables. This one's using minutes and this one's using seconds. And then I've just got some formatting here to make it look good as it prints out, essentially. And so what I want you to take a look at is the fact that, let me roll it up a little bit to there. So here, right there, if you notice, the hours at that point are 0. So hours here starts at 0. And what happens is, for that one iteration that hours is 0, that loop is going to iterate all of its iterations. So you'll notice that here, this middle section started, if I were to go all the way back up, it started at 0 as well, and it counted all the way up to 60, or 59 and all the way up to 60. You'll also notice, let's look right here. So as this one turned 59, let's watch what happened to the seconds. The seconds is going to count its full iterations of 60 iterations from 0 to 59. This would be a better example if I go back to 57. So if I start here at 57 minutes, that seconds loop, the most inner loop, is going to start at 0, which is right there, and it's going to count up to 59, so 0, and go all the way to 59. And what I want you to notice is the 57 doesn't change. The minutes stay the exact same until the seconds runs its entire full iterations, all of its iterations, before the minutes increases even once. If I go all the way down here to the bottom, you'll notice that the minutes has now completed its full iterations, all 60 iterations, before the hours increases even one time. So if I hit enter, you'll know it just repeats the same thing, but you'll notice the hours has now increased to 1. So if we do the math, that seconds has to, I mean, y'all probably done this math before, but that seconds loop has to iterate 60 times, and the minutes it has to loop 60 times 60. So for the 60 minutes. So what I just did, every time I hit enter, this entire thing is going to iterate 3,600 times before the hours even increases one time. So we're looping a lot, essentially. So every time I hit enter, that's 3,600 iterations, 3,600 times this thing is looping. So the main thing to understand about nested loops, there's nothing brand new, but how they work is what's new. The inner loops here, so the seconds, this inner loop is going to iterate all of its iterations, all 60, before this one iterates one time. And then once that one iterates one time, this one's going to repeat its 60. Then it's going to bounce back to minutes. Minutes is going to increase 1. Then the seconds is going to go 60 more times. This one's going to go to 3. This one's going to go 60 more times. This one's going to go to 4. Until the minutes, it's 60. And then the hours will increase 1 time. And so it keeps bouncing. The tiers keep going back up to the outside loop every single time, just for that outer loop to iterate one more time and one more time. So I bet you get the idea, so I don't want to stick to it too long. I want you to try this out, though, if you can. Throw it in your own IDE and kind of process through it. Do know that we can combine loops, and we probably will. We won't always have a for loop inside a for loop. We can have a while loop inside a for loop. So we can have, usually it's going to be a while loop inside a for loop, I believe. That's probably going to be how it's going to look. So just know that that's possible. It's also possible to have input validation. So we do that with while loops, right? So while the input's not correct, keep looping. So we can have a while inside of a while. So we can combine these into whatever that we need. So the main idea is that whatever loop is inside has to loop all of its iterations before it bounces back to the outer loop for it to increase even once.